Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another
Howard
episode.
Stern is still on the air.
How?
Already going off the rest. He just signed like another contract to like extend his show.
What does he talk? I'm Diego Crespo. That's Matt Garingo. You know this if you're already here. What
Yeah.
does he talk about?
He just interviews people. I don't think he does the like shock jock thing anymore because I think he's kind of ashamed of it. like,
Yeah, because he kind of like ruined an entire medium.
I
In a
wouldn't
way.
go that far, but it's
No,
like,
no, maybe not. I mean, there's a lot of like factors. There's a lot of mitigating
Yeah.
factors to that, but like, I do think people strived for that shock jock attitude for a little too long, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how that does lead us to like the more conservative aspects of YouTube and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, no, he definitely is like a pioneer that like led to that. Like there is a line that you can draw from the rise in popularity of Howard Stern to Donald Trump. like
I mean, kind of, yeah.
that
But
there's 100%, and I think that is what scared him a little bit. Like I think that realization, because you don't want to be. I think he's like worried about being remembered as that guy.
yeah,
You know, I mean, but yeah, I think, and and then like he had the whole situation with Artie Lang, which is pretty rough. Like, it's he gives a good interview every now and then. He interviewed fucking Francis Ford Coppola.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's like years ago. Like the Francis Ford Coppola was coming on to promote like one of those movies no one saw.
Oh,
And it was just interesting. Like there was that weird era where like he suddenly became legitimate once he went satellite,
hmm
So like actual prestigious people started showing up on his show occasionally. And it was like a big deal. Like, oh shit, he's got what's his name? And I think he's trying to do that more now. I think like in his later years he wants to kind of be like, I'm not going to bring someone on and harass them like I used to.
I will say I did see the Robert Downey Jr. bit when he's talking about like, his post Iron Man career, and of course he does kind of like egg on RDJ to be like, Scorsese was saying this stuff about the comic book movies and they're not real
Yeah.
cinema, but thankfully Robert Downey Jr., who is like a class act in person, I guess, was just
Yeah.
like not having it. He's like, he can say whatever he wants because he's Martin Scorsese,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, and it's also this weird thing of like every now and then, like when he's a good interviewer, but every now and then he lets like him trying to force his worldview onto whatever interview he has. That's happened a few times. It's weird. He's had such a weird career. He brought fucking Conan O'Brien on like when Conan like had just taken over, and they threw him like a goodbye party.
Oh,
To like, because they're like, you're gonna get canceled any week now, like when he had just started,
oh.
and they just harassed him the whole time, and it's actually a pretty funny thing to watch. But yeah,
But we are not here to talk about shock jocks. We're here to talk about Legend of Korra, Legend of the Last Retrospective. The last 4 episodes of Book 3 change, and there's actually like a lot of change that happens in these episodes. These kind of like hit the ground running, and they don't stop
yes,
at all.
they're fantastic. And not to derail things again, but for a moment I had to say I was thinking of ways to try and tie Howard Stern into Legend of Korra, and all those avenues are bad avenues. Like anything I could say would be a bad thing to say. So
Well, I mean, there's a lot of radio personalities on this with the voice and
Yeah, there's that
the
guy.
intro. Yeah.
well, I
But
thought the
first-
joke would be like, what if Korra went on the Howard Stern show? And then like you could make a joke about what he would say. And then I realized I couldn't make a joke about
No.
what he would say.
No, you
He
could
would
not.
say- he would say something terrible.
But first up, Chapter 10, Long Live the Queen. Again, obvious spoilers for all of Book 3 at this point. Everything.
No one here has not seen this show.
Yeah. And
anyone-
this is the episode that fucked up like an entire generation of people.
Is it this one?
It's this one, yeah. Long Live the Queen.
There's multiple ones.
Oh, okay,
I would
well-
say. in these 4.
Yeah, and these 4, there are some heavy hitters.
Yeah.
Actually, each one of these has like really fucked up stuff. So
Yeah, it gets. This is when the shit just like gets fucking wild, like where you're like, how did they get away with this? And is like I said, I think I brought up last episode that this is when it makes the jump to going online.
Mm-hmm.
like right around like episode 9, I think is when it happened.
Yeah, the last
And
5 episodes of book 3.
there must have been some. I feel like this had to have played some part in it, where it's like they were worried about airing some of this.
Maybe the woman does asphyxiate to death.
Yes.
You know.
Do they say though? Like I should have paid attention more to the language, because there is like an important language thing where like they used to do this a lot on those cartoons where someone very clearly would die on like some of the old superhero cartoons, but they would never say that they died. You know?
Yeah, they don't say the Earth Queen died. They say like they took out the Earth Queen, or the Earth Queen has fallen at the hands of Zahir and stuff like that.
Yeah, like they couldn't, like that's like the weird like line they just can't cross. And who was the kid from the Avatar: The Last Airbender, the revolutionary kid who wanted to blow up the dam?
A Jet.
Yeah, Jet died, and like, but they couldn't say that he died.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess they think kids are morons. I don't know.
I don't like everyone who saw that understood what happened. You know.
Yeah.
It wasn't
You flip the channel if in these eras and go over the fucking Cartoon Network, you can watch Dragon Ball Z where people die like every other episode.
They have like limbs blown off and stuff like that.
Yeah, people got shot through their bodies. I don't know what anyone was thinking, but I guess I don't know, because I was a little older when this aired, so like it didn't traumatize me. It just shocked me.
It caught me off guard. You know.
Here's the thing. Did this stuff when you were a kid? Did the stuff that shocked you, was it ever a death?
No, it tended to be like body horror stuff.
Yeah, it's like always like something that like is like either like intentionally or unintentionally fucked up. You know, like the fucking weird clown nightmare in Brave Little Toaster.
Alice in Wonderland, the original Disney cartoon. I saw that at a young age. And towards the end, when the queen is I think I've talked about this before, but when the queen is chasing Alice and screaming off with their head, and all the characters from Wonderland are like radically changing in size and shape and expression, like that image stuck with me forever. That gave me a nightmare.
Yeah. There is the air conditioning that commits suicide in the Brave Little Toaster.
Oh, yeah. I love bringing that one up.
Because, hey, guess we'll get that one stuck with me. He gets repaired at the end, so, like, I maybe didn't put together, but he does scream and then explode. So, that
well, there's no screaming in this episode. She just dies slowly.
Yeah.
Which is not much better.
Yeah, you just watch her, like, clawing to live.
Yeah. I mean, she was an awful person, but it's still, like, pretty harsh.
It's still harsh to see. Yeah. Shit gets fucked up, and it's odd. But it's that weird balance thing, because we'll talk about this again, too, where it's like, you could tell that they were allowed to go further than you'd expect, but you can still see where the line was drawn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't believe they didn't just do the Disney thing of, like, throwing guys off cliffs.
Well, they did that the last episode in the Spirit World.
Yeah. But even then, that guy technically isn't dead.
No,
like,
yeah.
But, like, Mufasa fell off that cliff. He's fucking dead. So.
Yeah, and then there's chaos in the streets of Ba Sing Se because the Red Lotus, as we now know them to be called, like, once again tear down the walls, but there's no invading force. They just kind of let the city, like, implode upon itself.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's bad that they open the walls in Ba Sing Se. You know, we had this whole conversation in the Last Airbender retrospective where it's like, what is the good and bad approach to Ba Sing Se, basically? And here I think it's just like the Red Lotus in this situation reveal that, like, this world wasn't working, you know? Yeah. But they don't have an answer for it. They're just, like, burning it down.
Well, their answer is the burning.
Oh, I guess so, yeah.
He's very explicit that he believes, like, chaos is the natural order of things, and we should strive for chaos above order. You know?
Yeah, and like if Ba Sing Se like worked like as a city or city state, whatever it is, right? Like when they brought down the walls, it wouldn't have been like mass chaos. People would have just been like, "What's happening?" You know?
Well, there are ways to do it. I mean, let's say, I don't know. This is complicated because again, it's like if we're talking about anarchism and like, I don't think I'm willing to bet anarchists don't think of things these ways.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a heightened extreme. All of Korra's villains tend to be like, here's an idea that might be in good hands, but we're going to go to extreme length. And like we've talked about, a lot of pop culture now is always like, well, the villains might have a good point, but their methods are all wrong.
Yeah.
But usually the methods aren't even related to like the ideology, which is a big problem.
Yeah.
And at least in Korra, they are like specifically related to like the characters' philosophies or like how they view the world, you know? It's more like in tandem with the surroundings.
There's the good moment where after he kills the Earth Queen and then they go to the guy in the radio room and one of the members of the Red Lotus like grabs him and then he's like, "Hey, no, we're not here to hurt this guy. We're here to help people like him." It's like this weird moment of principle after strangling a woman to death, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean that also I think colors the villains more interestingly too, because like Zahir really does believe himself to be like a revolutionary for the people, and maybe that's not like across the board with members of this group, you know. Like maybe some of them are in it just for the pursuit of power, in a way, to determine what can and cannot succeed in the world. And we don't really get more of that, but that is something that I thought about on this rewatch too. Like, okay, let's say they won, they get away with all of this, they probably couldn't even sustain like their own paradigm, you know.
I noticed some parallels between this episode and the U.S. occupation of Iraq.
Okay, there we are.
I mean, a big thing about why Iraq fell apart, it probably never would have worked. Not that it should have, because it was a bad thing to do. I want to stress, I think the Iraq War was bad, and we shouldn't have invaded. But if you're gonna invade, you might as well do it right. And we also didn't do it right. Because a big thing we did after invading and removing Saddam is that we didn't impose martial law and we didn't stop looting that was happening. We did protect all their oil reserves. But we didn't protect, say, the National Museum of Iraq, which was raided. And, you know, when you say looting, I think we have the very American idea of, like, whenever, you know, some protest goes a certain direction and you see people breaking into, like a Best Buy or something like that, right? You know, that's the American image of looting. But if you want to talk about looting that happens when a country's government has been overthrown, what you're talking about is, like, construction workers taking construction equipment and dismantling infrastructure. And taking it, which is what happened. And for whatever reason, Donald Rumsfeld did not declare martial law after invading Iraq and winning. After we had taken over the country, he did not do that. And then went on TV and joked around with reporters about the looting.
Jesus.
You can find video of him being like, everyone's saying there's all this looting happening. I don't know what anyone's talking about. It's very Giuliani in front of that fucking gardening store. Like, it has the same energy.
Oh my god.
And it's like it being like, everyone's just showing the same picture of one guy stealing a vase. And then, like, you go and look, and it's like fucking half of Baghdad was, like, completely destroyed by looting.
This is why, like, I call bullshit when you see people, like, kind of, like, rewriting history a little bit, being like, you know, not everyone knew the Iraq War was bad or, like, the invasion of the Middle East was bad. And it's like, no, people did. Like, to be honest, my mom took me to a protest around that when I was in middle school. You know, like, people knew. So, fuck off.
I want to stress, people didn't, it wasn't just that people knew it was bad. People knew we were going to war on a lie.
Yeah.
I want to stress that. As someone who was, you know, I was a child then, but the adults in my life that were pro the Iraq War their reasoning for doing it was that it would probably be over very quickly. That was their main argument. It was not weapons of mass destruction. It was like they might have them, they might not. Either way, if we invade Iraq, it probably won't take too long.
That's a great attitude
idiots.
to have.
Yeah. Yeah, it was... I don't know where this narrative has come from that, like, no one knew and no one cared. And it was like the biggest anti-war protests in American history happened. Like, it was enough that Bush went from being like a guy who we were about to elect God Emperor to a guy that it came very close in the 2004 election, you know? Bush went from a guy who stole the election in 2000 and everyone knew it to a guy who had like a 95% approval rating and could do no wrong. And the Iraq War got him to a point where the country went from being united to divided. I think it's important to know that.
The politics heavy aspect of Legend of Korra, to bring it back down to earth a little bit. Not too much more going on this season, but it is very front loaded next season. And I'm excited to talk about that.
Is table setting for the following season.
Yeah. But here's the thing, it doesn't feel like it. Like, it totally is its own narrative.
Yeah.
It's I'm really excited to talk about the next season, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
I am too. And well, I'm just saying that it's like, it's not table setting in the way that like you usually use it as an insult, you know? Like, it's just like, oh, you don't realize that they're setting up stuff. You just think this is like the end of the season playing out.
Yeah. Well, there is one moment that's very obvious.
There's one very underlined moment, but we will get to that. But I guess the question is like, how does it feel watching this now? How does it feel watching this episode where it's like the moment Law and Order goes away, everyone turns to looting?
It feels too simple. It does feel a little too simple for me. I still love this season, and I think this is a fantastic run of episodes we're talking about today. I think it is a little too... It's a writer's room version of like what could actually happen, and I don't need this to reflect reality 100%, obviously, right? Yeah. But maybe it speaks more to just how fucked up Ba Sing Se was than it does to like someone's actual perspective of like humanity, because we can get more into that too with the group settings.
We have plenty of historic examples of when a leader dies or when a government is overthrown that looting happens, you know? This isn't like a made up thing.
No, yeah. But I mean, like, considering like what's happened in the last year since we started this podcast, that it's the version of looting that we see in this program versus what we've seen in cities across the country specifically. It's very different. I mean, the antagonists are different in reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's almost like your question isn't unfair. Yeah, I think it's a valid question. It's just, it does get you thinking a little bit more about how we approach these things in fiction.
Well, I think it's important we ask if the show is biting off more than it can chew. Like, it is a children's show. Like, I believe in, you know, viewing it on like a, you know, curve like that of not trying to just be like, this is right and this is wrong, or like people who watch Steven Universe and take that shit way too seriously. Yeah. And maybe
Steven was nice to fascists, so I have to be nice to fascists too.
Yeah. Well,
it's not a show meant for 5-year-olds.
Yeah, but also like a show where it's like people watch that show and go like, the writers should be in prison for saying that it's okay to forgive genocidal maniacs. And it's like, that's not what that show is saying. Like, that show, there's a lot going on in that show. That is not what the show is saying. But Legend of Korra is much more overtly like, we're talking about anarchy as like a legit form of government or lack thereof, you know? Like a political philosophy. And it's interesting. I don't know. Like, I wonder if I've just gotten older or if the world has just gotten so fucked up. Like, I just wonder if I would view it differently, you know?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I think it mostly works, and I think it's interesting, but it's also like, I think when you start going in this territory, you kind of have to stop being a kid's show a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Like, at some point, you got to be a little more serious with what you're dealing with. And I don't know if this show can handle not being a kid's show, you know? Like,
Yeah. I think there's, at a certain point, it's very obvious that Nickelodeon was more of a restraint on this program. Not just because of the move to online that kind of, took the wind out of the show's sails, like, publicly, but just the subject matter and what you're allowed to do under the constraints of Nickelodeon programming, Like, you can only do so much with that. And, that's not me throwing them a softball. I think that's something that has to be addressed. You're right. I think we have to acknowledge that. And that doesn't mean not asking for more clarity on these kinds of stories either.
well, I'm just saying, like, to bring it back to Steven Universe, it would be like if the last season of Steven Universe suddenly became about the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you suddenly bring in this very real world thing, and, like, even if, you try to be like both sides, it would push the show into a thing where then you have to start asking bigger questions,
Yeah.
And I wonder if Legend of Korra kind of pushes it there. And again, it's a little, I don't know. It's gotten weird to talk about kid shows lately. Especially online, where, like, it's now, like, everyone's kind of like, it's either the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. It's either all morally good or all morally bad. And then it's like, you never know if you're wasting your time asking these questions,
Mm-hmm.
Like, you never know when you're supposed to go, like, it's a kid show, I shouldn't worry about it. And then when you're supposed to be like, now maybe we should ask some questions about some of this, Especially, like, there's a fucking shot in episode 11, I think, where they show the wall coming down. That's 10. 10, we very clearly see the wall coming down.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all got to a point where we are very much like, hey, walls are bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, walls being good or bad has become a very telling of what your political beliefs are now. And this isn't a show that was... And this is a show where, like, the villains are literally saying, we want a world without kings or queens, and we want a world without borders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's a very direct political statement. I don't know, it pushes things in a direction where it's like, I think something that can kind of have its cake and eat it too, which might be a weird comparison, are the Song of Ice and Fire books. Because those books put a lot of effort into being like, look, everyone kind of has the mentality of, like, that medieval era, Like, these are not characters with, like, a 21st century moral compass, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're very old school. So, like, even when you're talking about, like, well, who should sit on the throne, who should do this, who should blah, 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 it's like they don't have it in their worldview to be like, well, maybe democracy would be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you can kind of be like a show where it's like you can criticize power institutions but also have characters who are, like, reinforcing those institutions. Because the show is never like, these people are right. Like, those books are never like, these people are right and good.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, they're very much like, these people are products of their time and of their society. Now, it says a lot when you make up that society from whole cloth. But hey, it at least kind of is honest about it. Whereas this, it's like a weird mix of, like, this is a universe with emperors, with nomadic tribes, with kings, and with presidents. Very much like the world we live in, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But we aren't on equal footing, It's not like there is a king somewhere who has the same power as the president of the United States.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we also have a lot of democracies in this world which aren't real democracies. We happen to be living in one of them. But I don't know, I like that the show gets you asking these questions. I just don't know if the show doesn't push it too far. And I think it's important that we ask that question.
Mm. Well, I don't know how to specifically like approach that like further, but I do think the show is smart enough to recognize where, like you brought up, that the power is not on equal footing here. Like President Raiko is like the first president in this world ever,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And then the Earth Kingdom is very clearly like where the power has been held since the fall of the Fire Nation, right? Since it stopped being like a fire empire or whatever, right? And even then, arguably, it's where like power was held because they were able to hold off the armies of the Fire Nation, right? And Ba Sing Se never fell except for that one time with Azula. And so like it's never had to undergo a change that the rest of the world has had to either, you know? Mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously, it's good that they didn't fall under like the full imperial might of the Fire Nation rule for that 100 years or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I think that there is a lot going on in this show constantly, politically and philosophically, that it maybe doesn't always get credit for, like The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Like, I really do think that when Ba Sing Se falls, it's not like anarchy is bad. I think it's just that they're kind of lighting these powder kegs across the world, you know?
Yeah.
Like, all these things were fucked up and falling apart. And we saw that through Korra's struggles in the first two seasons, more or less, right? To varying degrees, and a little bit in this season, too, that she struggled to kind of deal with these problems because she's not allowing things to change in a way. Except for the spirit world stuff. That's her big, like, step forward in the world, so to speak, right? Like, that's the first active...
And no one was happy with it.
Yeah. And so it's a good counterpoint for Zahir's team, like, anti-Avatar, I guess.
Yeah.
To be, like, also instigating these changes. It's just more immediately harmful, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a show that's trying to be more reflective of, like, modern society, postmodern society, just stuff like... this is where we're getting in the territory where I'm just not smart enough to talk about it. And this is why we talk about children's cartoons and Adam Sandler movies. But it's like, you know... We very quickly became, a lot faster than we really think, we became a world that is driven more by ideology than by, you know, the right to rule and kings and queens and shit like that. And it's crazy to think that ideology has driven the world to wars, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what we believe, where it's like we think, you know, like, I agree that democracy is a good idea, and there are people out there who don't, and that has led to conflicts around the world. And these are very modern things, and I think it's also happened so quickly, and it's all happening faster, especially these days. And it's just weird, like, I don't know how much I want to give a children's show credit for being, like, trying to show what it's like to live in a world that's going through that drastic of a change that quickly, where you're kind of, you have the pressure of quote unquote keeping the balance, you know. I've brought up the term before where it's like, you know, if you're a god and like the world has moved on from you, and like what do you do? Like, that's a conflict. That's kind of the central conflict of the show. And I don't know, I think it ultimately works because it gets your brain working and it lets us to have long-winded conversations like this. But I feel like someone could walk away from this also feeling 100% differently than I did. and we would both be valid, and maybe that's the secret strength of the show.
I like that. I got nothing else for that subject. I do want to shout out that this episode also features Korra and Asami being gal pals and escaping from the Earth Queen's forces, and then getting stuck in the desert with the Earth Queen's forces and having to work together to escape a giant fish monster thing.
I like the air captain with the pirate hook.
Yeah, that's fun little character design stuff.
Yeah, well, I just like, if you want to talk about like what this show's really good at in terms of like small character stuff, is that like you can see, you learn this guy's like entire career just from how he acts in this like scene, and this is like the only moment he's on this show. You know, he's like, "Well, you're our prisoners," and it's like, "Well, we kind of have to work together now." He's like, "I guess." Like, he's like, "No, we're gonna wait until people get here," and then like once the threat arrives, he's like, he's a pragmatic guy, and it's like you've learned that this guy's probably been through some shit and had to deal with some things, and it's just that's the type of legwork that like a show of other contemporary shows didn't really do. How some shows for adults don't even put in that much effort. Like, sit down and be like, this guy has to feel like a person that has lived in this world for at least a little while.
Yeah, I mean that's a real strength of all these series in the Avatar world, and not that common. You're right. Still now with some stuff I watch that I like.
And you even get with Bolin and Mako when they're in prison. Their little neighbor in the prison. It's a little bit of character to him.
You can metal bend? No.
I was like, oh, I was taken away from my family. It was actually good for the beginning because I got some sleep, but then I realized I was away from my family. Like, that's a weird little moment to just throw in the show. Also, after Zaire kills the Earth Queen, and then he's like, we're overthrowing the government, and then Mako and Bolin are talking about having to stop him. Their prison neighbor's like, you know that guy? He's my hero.
Yeah. Right? And that just brings up even more like thought bubbles in your brain about like, oh yeah, like maybe I don't know. There's a lot going on in this world, and just because it's a fictional television program, we don't get all the perspectives, you know.
Yeah.
That's always going to be kind of
if there's any moment that
restraint.
sums up the show perfectly, I think it's the fact that they fix the airship and then it's immediately destroyed.
Yeah.
I think that sums up the vibe of the show.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. And then Korra's just the one dude at the wheel, just like, holy shit. Asami and Korra escape, and then that kind of leads us into the next episode as they meet Tonraq, Zuko, and Lin Beifong, who's tracked them down, and they all hear about the revolution going on at Ba Sing Se. And Zahir frees Mako and Bolin for them to give Korra a message, and
classic villain stuff.
Yeah,
like, I want you to send a message.
Yeah, but they go back. They steal an airship and they go back to rescue their family from the lower ring of Ba Sing Se, which is getting engulfed in flames. And I think that's also like telling, because Ba Sing Se is a tiered city for like the poor, the middle class, and the upper class, you know? And it's very obvious that like the bottom ring has just gone to like Mad Max level apocalyptic standards.
Yeah.
You know?
And that they're the ones suffering the most from this supposed revolution that's supposed to help them.
Yeah.
Although then you get the moment where there's a nice little moment where the grandmother's like, we hate the Earth Queen, but like I'm gonna take that picture of the Earth Queen with me. And it's like the Earth Queen has been nothing but a villain. Like, she is not sympathetic in any way. And it's like, all right, now we're gonna hang out with a character that loves the Earth Queen.
Yeah, well, because it's like, this is all like she knew, you know. Like, I mean, we also get the comment about like Mako and Bolin's grandmother. That's the home that she was raised in and raised her family in, and that, like, you know, like at a certain point, like if that's the only worldview you have, you know, it's hard to shake off that the Earth King was actually a horrible monster, and she's not going to accept that. You know, she's too old.
I do like that Bolin tried to be like, you know, your home doesn't matter where you live, it's where your family is. And then she's like, I'm still not leaving. And then they just have to like grab her.
Yeah. Yeah, that was sweet. And that family sticking around is like really funny too. And then when they all meet up at that oasis again, and she mistakes Asami for Korra, and then she's introduced to both Asami and Korra, and she's like, Mako, why aren't you dating nice girls like these? Which is wow.
She has a great moment later. I can't remember if it's this episode or the next one, where everyone's discussing what they're gonna do in the moment of crisis, and then she just goes like, "And I'm gonna take a nap."
Yeah. I think that's this one, but that's pretty great.
Yeah, that's a good moment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Chapter 11 is the ultimatum, and so we leave Ba Sing Se behind as it's falling apart, and then Mako and Bolin, after reuniting with everyone, tell Korra that Zahir's planning to kill the Airbenders at the Northern Air Temple unless she surrenders to him, because they're tired of chasing her around. And so Korra goes to the spirit world for guidance, or to confront Zahir one last time, but he's not there. And then she runs into Iroh again. How do you feel about this? Because I kind of didn't need this.
I don't know. I think it's fine.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like fine. This show has been pretty good at doling out character stuff. I would have preferred something else.
When was the last time we saw Iroh?
The last season, book 2.
Yeah, I think you just needed that, like, a little reminder that, like, Iroh is living in the spirit world. So then when she mentions to Zuko that she talked to him, you can have that little moment. Because I think that's a good moment.
Yeah.
I think the moment between Korra and Zuko is good. But I think maybe they should have just been like, Korra's like, I have to seek advice from the spirit world, instead of being like, I'm going to go there to kick his ass.
Uh-huh.
I think maybe she should have gone there knowing she was going to talk to him. Because, like, I think that she's right when she's like, look, I don't have any of the past avatars to talk to help. You knew the avatar.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
So, and then you could be like, well, I knew the avatar, but really Zuko knew him better, and then that can lead you to Zuko, you know?
Mm-hmm. All right, like, I don't dislike it, I've always felt weird about this one for some reason. Mm-hmm. But the Zuko and Korra moment's nice.
I will say, Bruce Davidson's a weird casting.
Still,
for, Fire Lord Zuko. But when they're talking, and then she admits that she spoke to Uncle Iroh, and he's like, you spoke to my uncle? And, like, he suddenly, like, you can sense, like, the young person Zuko used to be in that line delivery. That's pretty great.
No, it's totally.
Like, half a second. Yeah. Like, he totally nailed that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that gets you right, like, in the heart.
Yeah.
It's a very touching little, like, oh yeah, humanity. They're able to go warn the air temple by traveling back to the Metal Clan.
You know, Uncle Iroh could have reached out to Zuko at some point.
Maybe he's just chilling. He knows Zuko has to live his life.
I guess, but, you know.
Yeah. But they go to the Metal Clan and use the radio to contact Tenzin. But they're too late. The Red Lotus is already there, and they fuck everything up. Like, they just wreck the temple.
Yeah, this is where the show kind of just goes, like, full-on action, and the next 2 episodes are just, like, terrific action scene after terrific action scene.
I gotta be honest, the next one is, and I think it's terrific, and there's a quick, like, couple gut punches where you think, like, oh, these characters might bite the dust now that we've seen that they're capable of killing people off in this show again. And they really don't, except for the next one in Enter the Void, which I guess we can kind of just jump to, because Tenzin gets fucked up really bad, and there's a cutaway that makes it look like he might not come back.
Well, I think the Earth Queen dying kind of suddenly makes you like, oh, people can die now. Like, yeah. Even though people have died on the show before, it's just like, oh no, now people who aren't, like, explicitly they don't die like by their own hand in some way, you know. It's just like, oh, like they're gonna kill someone. Yeah,
well, Kai, the little airbending Aladdin boy, gets blown out of the sky and he just falls, and there's no cutaway to, like, him landing on a branch immediately. We just cut to him at the end of the episode, so it's like, oh no. And then Tenzin,
for a few minutes, thinking they might have killed that fucking kid.
Yeah, which is, like, insane. But then Tenzin has a moment where he's getting, like, wrecked by the entire Red Lotus clan, and then he's like, as long as I draw breath, like, you won't stop me or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, no, dude, didn't you see it last episode?
That's the last thing to say right now.
I know. I got scared the first time I saw that. I was like, dude, shut up, no.
Yeah, it's
and he's fine. Well, no, he's not fine. He's out of commission for the rest of the season, basically. But
I will say, if you want to talk about sound design too, the sound that she makes when she does the combustion bending from her mind, you know, that sound when she's, like, firing shit is terrifying.
Yeah, it's like powerful.
Yeah. It honestly feels like a gun going off, which is, I think, a scary sound.
Yeah. Let's see, I don't want to skip over anything either, but yeah, the end of the ultimatum is just kind of like action. Oh, and Tenzin and his siblings kind of working in tandem is
Yeah.
really nice to see, like how far they've all come together. Of course, they also get their asses beaten too, which is like scary because I like those
Yeah,
characters
yeah.
a lot.
I will say we got to talk, I guess, Zuko's advice where he was like, she's like, what would Aang do in a situation like this? And then Zuko's like, well, Aang maybe would sacrifice himself for the air, because like bringing back the Air Nation was like his one dream and the one thing he basically didn't accomplish in his life. And so it's like, he might sacrifice himself for that, but he also, Aang had a good understanding of his place as the Avatar, and that like he had to be there for the world. I feel like maybe there's a beat missing here, because Korra's like, I'm willing to sacrifice myself for all this, but like, I can't remember. Does she know what the Red Lotus is ultimately planning? Like, they keep talking about like we're gonna make a world without the Avatar. Like that's what they keep talking about.
Hmm.
But like, does she know what they really mean by that? Like,
No, at this point, no one knows that. They just know that they want to kill Korra.
yeah,
That's it. But they don't know that
okay,
like they're planning to end the line or how they plan
yeah.
to end the line or anything like that.
Because I felt like if Korra understood that, she would have had a moment where she was like, "Look, if they capture me, someone has to kill me before I go into the Avatar state."
Well,
Like,
I think Korra has enough of an understanding from her perspective. I'm not saying I even fully agree with her decision, but like that bringing back the Air Nation was such like a huge deal to the world that she might think that the Air Nation is more needed than her now. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Which is like kind of a sad thought for someone to have,
yeah.
which the show
Well, again, if we're talking
carries
about
carries to the end here. We'll talk about that.
yeah,
But
yeah, well, we're talking about a world that maybe is like she's wrestling with has the world moved on from the Avatar. It's like if that's true, then it's like yeah, maybe she should make the ultimate sacrifice.
mhm.
Because now the Airbenders are back. Now balance has actually returned. And it's interesting where like you could totally read this show, like this season specifically, where it's like from the point of view of Zaire as like the hero of this season.
Yeah.
Like it totally fits, which is crazy. I don't think there's too many other kid shows that do it like that.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I think that's why he's such an effective villain too.
Yeah.
You know?
I just think it's so stupid where it's like what's considered like I think I brought up Thanos last time too, where it's like people consider Thanos like a really good villain.
It's like no, Josh Brolin just fucking rocks.
Yeah, Josh Brolin gives a good performance, but it's like also it's like what nothing he says ever makes any fucking sense. Like we never know if it's not supposed to make sense,
Mm-hmm. Well, like even like from his introduction, which is like it has presence and he's like a scary like beast, But then his ideology is all over the place because he's like monologuing about like balance and stuff, and then he starts beating on the Hulk, and then his henchmen are like, "No, let him have his fun." So it's like, is he like a demigod who thinks he's above it, or is he like a psychopath? And
yeah,
I never feel that they know which one he is,
Yeah, and they never pick a lane. Like they never figure out what the fuck to do,
Yeah, like they should have just made him fucking horny for death again.
Yeah,
Make him horny. You know what? If you don't want to do death, just bring back Kate Blanchett from Thor Ragnarok. Have him be horny for her. That's relatable.
Yeah.
That might be. I might cut that joke, but
No. It makes sense what you're saying, like even your stupid joke, but
Thank you.
yeah, I don't know. It just feels like that. It would have been much more simple to be like, this guy. This is what happens when you give godlike powers to someone like that, which is basically what the Infinity Gauntlet's about.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you have to do the Infinity Gauntlet story exactly, but if you're going to tell a different story, maybe try and tell a more interesting one.
If you're going to tell a story about collecting power stones, you might want to tell a story relating to the balances of power and how power is inherently imbalanced in worlds,
Yeah.
And how that's a dangerous thing. Power. And how no one man should have all that power. You get what I'm getting at? It's not that complicated.
Yeah. But then maybe we might realize Tony Stark was actually a bad guy.
Yeah. Well, no. See, he's a good guy because he didn't sacrifice his daughter for everyone else's kids. And so he brought everyone else back and mentally and psychologically and ecologically damaged the world around him. So that makes him a
I have-
hero.
I have no idea what happens at the end of that movie.
They're
Like,
time terrorists.
Yeah, but whatever. Like they set up that like they very explicitly go, time traveling has no consequences. And I'm like, all right, fine, if that's what you want to do. Like that's fine. But then it's like when Tony Stark says, "I am Iron Man," and snaps his fingers. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel.
Well, he
At
said
that
it at the end
moment.
of his first movie.
I know. Like I know that that's like the snarky thing to say, but like they had to have been thinking something.
Well, Tony Stark. Robert Downey Jr. is the one that came up with that line because they had like nothing at the end. He just snapped his fingers.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well,
So thank you, Robert Downey Jr. for trying.
yeah, for at least putting in some effort.
Yeah. Like I know everyone says he kind of sleepwalks through the role, but like I've always thought he's very good.
Yeah.
And
No,
then,
he's
like-
he's totally good. He just makes his charisma look effortless.
Yeah.
But as a guy who's like, I don't know if you want to end a story about a self-destructive guy by saying the best thing he did was kill himself.
Yeah. I hate that.
I think that's a problem. I don't know about anyone else out there.
No, I'm on record. I hate that decision. I hate the time travel bullshit. I hate that it's framed heroically that they don't undo the snap. Like, it's not a natural disaster event. It's something inherently unnatural. Wouldn't you want to undo that? I don't. It's so fucking stupid. It's like psychotic to me.
Wait. So you think that what they should have done was just like when they got the stones, they should have stopped Thanos from doing the snap?
Yes.
Um,
I think this is the one time where it's like we can't let the stakes stick because of the damage it would cause to like the world around them and the people around them that they're trying to protect. Like this is the
yeah,
one
but I
time you
also-
can do that.
I also don't think anything's defined enough for me to like feel that way. know?
I mean, those movies are so bad at like setting up the actual worlds around them that maybe you're probably right. But like it's so awful. Like all these Netflix shows are about the fallout about the snap. And
Yeah.
it's like wouldn't
to
that
be-
be a bad thing then?
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know. The thing got me the thing I come away thinking about that you're not supposed to, because you're really not supposed to ask this question, is I'm like, well, if you snap your fingers and you're just like, everyone comes back, do they come back where they were last? Because the Earth is constantly in motion
Mhm.
around the sun, and then our sun is in motion in the universe, so would they all just appear in space where the Earth was when the snap happened?
Uh-huh. Well, how does that relate to other people's planets? Because there's
Yeah.
aliens in this universe, you know? Like, I totally thought about that, too. And, like,
Also, you snap and you go like, all right, I snap, half of all life is gone, right?
mhm.
It's like, well, trees are alive. Like, that's life. So did we lose half the trees? Like,
See, that would
would
have
be-
been awesome.
yeah, that would be pretty bad. But it's also like, but it's if Thanos does that, where it's like, all right, I snap, half of all life is gone because I snap my fingers, and I did that to protect resources. And it's like there's tons of resources we get through, like biology and living things. Like, you know how medicine is made?
Mhm.
Like, it's yeah, maybe now we're not using oil as much, I guess. But there are also, oil is from dead animals, like that's dinosaurs and shit. Does it have any effect on oil? And then the only line we get in the movie is Steve Rogers says, the whales are coming back. Like when he's trying to be like, maybe we should just accept the world as it is post snap. And it's like, why would the whales come back?
Yeah, like, wouldn't there be more of them gone still?
Yeah, wouldn't he have cut in half the whale population that was already in trouble? Like,
Yeah, like, they didn't think about that. I genuinely believe we've spent more time talking about this movie than they did thinking about it.
yeah, and I almost want to think that, like, you could have done something where it's like, well, Thanos is from, like, an alien planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
maybe when you're like an intergalactic civilization that can like terraform planets and shit, maybe cutting the population in half does make more sense, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's just, I'm making a big leap here. Let's just assume. And then you have this interesting thing that's like, well, he's doing this to protect, you know, essentially, quote unquote, like upper, more advanced, quote unquote, civilizations. But then a planet like Earth, which is still kind of stuck with just the Earth, is like devastated by what Thanos is doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then for him, it's like, well, what I'm doing will ultimately help the galaxy, but it will hurt planets like the Earth, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
There's a dilemma.
The story,
right there.
the story, not the the action.
Yeah, you know, like there's an issue right there. And you could have explained it in like 2 lines of dialogue. Like, that's not that complicated. And instead you come away from it and then you don't know. Like, if we spend as much time talking about trying to figure out what the fuck Zack Snyder's politics are in his fucking movies, like, what the fuck do the Russos think? Like, it's all just strange.
I think they're the flip coin to the J.J. Abrams equation, you know, where it's like, well, he just wants to please everyone. That's his problem. Mm-hmm. And I think they're kind of similar.
I think that, yeah, J.J. Abrams wants to please everyone, but they are, I think them and the Marvel formula in general is very much about, like, we want everyone to know exactly what's happening at all times, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't want anyone sitting there confused. I was thinking about this recently with, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. At the end, Yondu sacrifices himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, he has that line where he's like, he may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you don't need that line. Like, Yondu could have sacrificed himself. And then, because even then, Quill gives a speech later where he's like, Yondu was my real father. It's basically what his speech is saying. But you don't even need that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through just the images alone, you can totally get, like, okay, Kurt Russell was his biological father but wasn't his dad, and Yondu was his adoptive father but was more of a father to him, you know?
Yeah.
You can totally do all that. But if you don't have the characters saying it, 3% of the audience might be confused. And these movies put a lot of effort into making sure no one walks away confused. In terms of the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Where you can tell, like, you understand why A, B, C happens. And I think they're very good, quote, at that. But in doing so, they make bad movies. You know?
Yeah, because, like, that's not what cinema's, like, about. You know?
Like,
it's about letting the images and the sound express something.
Without spoiling it, I think everyone needs to watch Once Upon a Time in the West. And that end when they do the slow zoom in on what's his name's face? Death Wish guy.
Charles Bronson.
Bronson's face, because Bronson could never really act very well, but you just do the zoom in on his face, and then just visually you learn what his connection is with Fonda. You know, like you learn it. Oh wait, that's not who that is. Who's in that? Fuck. Did I just fuck something up? So, hold on. I just want to make sure. Oh, it was Fonda. All right. For some reason, I thought it wasn't Henry Fonda. You suddenly realize what the connection is, and it's all told visually, and there's no dialogue, and it's like the harmonica's there, and like you figure it all out, blah blah, and then that's the Marvel version of that would be everyone screaming exactly what we're watching as it's happening. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we're talking about biting off more than you can chew, I think those guys bit off more than they can chew, and they're like, we're going to have a villain who's going to kill half the universe.
Yeah.
And they just didn't know how to deal with that. I mean, it's honestly already making me think better about Korra, where it's a show that, like, we're not going to give you easy answers to any of this. Where the Russos, in trying to give easy answers, make it more fucked up. Where it's like, there shouldn't be an easy answer to this.
But, you know, you talk about, like, visual storytelling. I think this episode, because it's all pretty much action. It's the exchange for Korra for the Airbenders, then Tenzin, Asami, Mako, and Bolin realize that the airbenders are not there. They've been moved, and it's like a showdown in the temple. That the temple starts turning into lava because Kazan, the lava bender, is fucking shit up again, and it becomes like a race to escape. Meanwhile, Korra, the metal benders, and her father are in a showdown with Zahir and Pali, the combustion bender lady, and it's just like shit's happening all over the place, but you never like, it's never too much. And then there's the moment, of course, when Pali like gets her head fucking blown off, which is
they
like
blow her head off.
And
they don't show it.
They don't show it.
They could not get away with that.
No.
You know exactly what happened.
Yeah, you know exactly what happened because you see the metal wrap around her head.
I still feel like we might be seeing. There must be a darker version of this because like you can tell there's an edit there.
Yeah, because it's from the light erupting from within the metal mask, and then the cut and like swooshing camera passes it here as he calls out to her, and we see like the smoke cloud in the distance.
Yeah.
There's like one or two things missing right there.
There's something missing there.
And it always bothered me, but then I rewatched it this time, and I was so into it that it just felt smooth. Like you can still see it, but it's not like a problem, you know?
I think it's fine, and I think the slow zoom in kind of makes up for like the fact that they know they couldn't show all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just feel like there's on a cutting room floor somewhere. Pai Li and Zahir are shared like a really tender moment before her head explodes.
Yeah, which is kind of like when I first saw it, I was like, are they going to start killing them off too? Mm-hmm. Like I kind of got the feeling, and you know they do kill her off, but like I don't know. In a live action thing, I think it would be more obvious that she would die, and this isn't even a problem. It's just something I think about, like the visual language between like live action and animation. Because animation is presumably more for children, and this show specifically is more for children. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just some weird detail I thought about rewatching this.
This is a show where a woman's head explodes, and also it ends with a guy shoving a sock in the villain's mouth and then saying, "Put a sock in it."
Oh, yeah. That happens within like 30 minutes of each other.
Yeah. So, you want to know what type of show this is?
Yeah. But I want to say that the relationship between Lin and Suyin, the Beifong sisters, was really touching, and it did kind of look like maybe Lin wouldn't get out of there for a second. So that was nice that Suyin got to be the one to take out Pali and
blow her head off.
Yeah.
But also, I just think that, like I said, there's like talking about like Zahir maybe being like the inverted hero of the story, where it's like he's like anti-Team Avatar, and or more Team Anti-Avatar, I guess would be the better phrasing. Because like it's like they've been on this, they're like friends on their own adventure, and there's even like that scene where they're in the back of Bolin and Mako are in the back of the truck, and he's like, "Oh, I think you guys have like unspoken love between each other," blah, blah, blah. And there's like a joke made about it, and it's like that's exactly what Aang and the gang was going through on their adventure.
Yeah,
I just think it's so interesting that because they're making these parallels very clear. I mean, Zahir straight up shaves his head.
Yeah,
that's a big thing in this is the shaving of the head, and so it's like to be more like Aang. So it's like she's fighting Aang in a weird way.
And instead of reaching the Avatar state, he reaches enlightenment with his airbending abilities and learns to fly.
Yeah,
which is like a cool evolution because we got to see all the element bending have their own like their peak. And then air finally gets its own, which we haven't seen a lot of because, Aang was the only one for a while. And so it's neat that it's just like, oh, yeah, that's where we're taking this now. That is possible. And shout out to Zelda Williams, who makes her first appearance as metal-bending Captain Kuvira, who saves Korra's father because Korra sees her father get tossed off the side of the cliff, thinks he's dead. And then we get a nice moment. Name? Yeah, we got this little moment where she's like, you can call me.
She looks off in the distance and sees the ghosts of Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, and then says Rey Skywalker.
No. No, but her name, Kuvira, is underlined. And it's like, I wonder if that's going to be important later.
It's a little, that's interesting.
That's like the one time the show makes it like painfully obvious where it's going.
Yeah, but to be fair, we don't know if like that means she's going to be a villain or if she's just going to be on Team Avatar next season. You know?
Yeah,
we don't really know.
No, we don't. But like,
she is dressed very militaristically, but she looks like she's looking for a fight. But she also saved someone.
Yeah,
so she must be a good person.
Yeah, but I will say, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, is she going to betray them? She's going to be a secret member of the Red Lotus. And no, she's not.
Also, because it's Zelda Williams, it's like, oh, they gave Zelda Williams a cameo. You know, you could totally write it off as that.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, oh, you know, she must have been a fan. Like, that's happened before.
Yeah.
But
it is weird that it's so underlined.
Yeah, well, they've never done that where it's they so far in the show they have not had the villain from one season appear in the next season.
Mm-hmm. So. Oh, why would you say that? That's weird. That's not related to this at all.
Oh, wait.
All right, Chapter 13, Venom of the Red Lotus. This is the season finale. It's a big one. It was released online at the same time as Enter the Void, the previous episode. And I'm
guessing these were meant to be aired together.
Yeah.
Like, that feels... That's at least the vibe you get.
Yeah, because we end the last episode... Oh, I forgot to bring this up. We end the last episode with Zahir escaping with Korra as he's flying away. And...
also, the last episode was called Enter the Void.
Yeah, I just said that.
Just like that movie.
Oh. I don't have enough time to start.
I was going to make a joke that the episode was directed by that guy, and I couldn't remember his name.
Gaspar Noé.
Yeah.
I don't... Look, here's a tangent. I love the cinematographer he works with. He's worked with Harmony Korine on his last two films. I love the look of his films. I cannot stand Gaspar Noé films, so...
yeah, I can't blame you.
Yeah.
Gaspar Noé's in that, you know... I can't think of fucking... What's his name who did Dogville?
Lars von Trier?
Yeah, Lars von Trier were like, their thing is like, we want you to hate my movie.
Yeah.
You know...
Yeah, but like I like that cinematographer a lot, so I'll always put up with Gaspar Noé films.
I like Enter the Void. I thought was pretty interesting, but that was about it. Everyone who told me to watch Irreversible when I was in college, I hope you're having a bad time right now.
Don't worry, we're all having a bad time right now.
I did not need to see Irreversible.
But we end the last episode with Bolin discovering that he cannot metal bend, but he can lava bend, which is a neat little addition. And Zahir escapes with Korra, and she wakes up trapped in a Red Lotus prison, and they're going to poison her until she enters into the Avatar state as like a defense mechanism, so they can kill her in the Avatar state and end the Avatar line once and for all. Which is kind of that's a big villain plan.
That's a big villain plan, and I have to say that I was distracted a little bit because I read a quote from Gaspar Noé while you were talking.
No.
A quote that I cannot repeat here.
Okay,
and it is maybe one of the worst quotes I have ever read from a living director.
Yeah.
So,
don't bother with him.
Yeah. It's somehow worse than when Lars von Trier said he was a Nazi at the Cannes Film Festival.
What?
Yeah.
I know he said he understood Hitler.
He gave a speech after Melancholia, I think, where he was like, I think he was trying to make a point, but you know how he is.
Yeah.
And he was like, I realized I was a Nazi. And so, like, he said something awkward like that. And he was banned from the Cannes Film Festival for a few years.
Yeah, so that sounds about right.
Oh, Antichrist, Melancholia, and Nymphomaniac are part of his Depression trilogy.
Oh, it's only a trilogy? But I thought he made more films than that.
Yeah.
Haha.
How about that house that Jack built?
I haven't seen that. I think I'm going to avoid that one.
Yeah, you don't need to.
No, okay, I figured. Sorry, I like Melancholia and Antichrist, though.
I will say that the villain, the titular Jack from the house that Jack built, who is a serial killer, he is talking to a guy, I think he just keeps calling Verge the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, like, halfway through who Verge was, and I was so angry.
Oh. I feel like you're going to have to explain that more another time.
I'll whisper it so the other people don't hear.
Okay.
It's Virgil from fucking from the Divine Comedy. He's the guy who, he was the writer, the ancient Greek or ancient Roman writer, who travels with Dante in the Divine Comedy through hell. It's like, oh, he's in hell and he's with Virgil. That's who he's talking to.
I have flames. Flames on the side of my face.
IndieWire gave The House that Jack Built an A-.
But we see Korra confronted with her literal demons, the villains from the previous seasons. They're all kind of coming to like mock her, and it's like, it's in her head, but it's also like, it's what she believes that like her journey's not been like super fulfilling. It's just been a lot of struggle and hardships, and like she has people that care about her, but it's like, how much can that sustain her if she's not really believing in herself anymore? Like she's kind of trapped in this cycle of just causing problems for people, or so she believes. Because it's just pretty like fucking dark and like depressing.
Yeah, it's a pretty dark climax.
Yeah, and they put it's like mercury. They mercury poison her basically.
It looks
tough,
disgusting, and painful.
Yeah,
and awful.
Ugh.
She gets tortured a lot on this show.
Yeah, like at some point, I'm not like judging the writers of the show. I'm just like, it's pretty harsh.
Yeah,
I'm pretty like lean. Like if I had kids, I'd be pretty lenient with what they watch. But maybe this one's not for those younglings. Not the super younglings. It's just a little heavy with the imagery. Sometimes that's all.
My dad showed me the drug overdose in Pulp Fiction when I was 5, and I turned out fine.
Yeah, I bet you did.
That's why I'm on this fucking podcast. A goddamn children's cartoon show.
Yeah. But we do get to catch up with the Airbenders, and Kai gets to who is alive, leads the rest of the team. I forgot to bring this up. He leads the rest of the team to where Zahir and the Red Lotus members are keeping the rest of the Airbenders so they can also save Korra. And it's this great like culmination of all the relationships and character dynamics and the world building. Like it all just comes to a head right here. We see all these things develop to a climax and everyone working together to save Korra and the Airbenders. And it's like Korra doesn't see all the good she's done. She just sees the failure, and like the struggle. But it's like literally right outside her worldview. It's like right there, right next to her in the next room over. And I think that's what adds like a certain layer of sadness to this episode. Like she just can't see it. And I know I just keep saying that, but there's a real sadness to that, Yeah. Like she's lost in the woods, so to speak. And then also we just get some like crazy throwdowns with lava bending. Mako kills a woman. He kills the waterbending woman.
Although it's kind of like no, I guess you're right. He killed her. He straight up just killed her.
Yeah.
I thought there was maybe more going on there, but then I'm like,
no, he lightning bends the water. I mean that's a pretty great like little fight and moment when he lands in the water and it's immediately like an oh shit moment, But yeah, he takes her out. Like, okay, maybe she didn't die from the lightning bending, but like, what are the chances of that? And then Ghazan is like, I'm not going back to prison, because that's what all these fucking people have to say. And then he lava bends the cave in on itself, while Korra escapes and breaks free in the Avatar state, and her and Zahir just go into like a Man of Steel style showdown. And I say Man of Steel because this was prior to the Snyder Cut watch for the first time, and so I did rewatch Man of Steel, and I did get heavy Man of Steel vibes from the finale, but so much better directed, and much less headache-inducing.
We're recording, this is the recording we're doing after we did the Snyder Cut recording, and I talked about, like, I can't think of the last time I really enjoyed, like, superhero action. Like, action that was specifically involving superheroes using superpowers. This gets pretty close.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a little bit held against it because it's fantasy and it's animated, but, like, the action here is pretty terrific.
No, they're like flipping through the sky and you never lose track of anyone, but they'll have like such power. They're like crashing through like these cliffs and these ravines. And it's like how they use the environment around them, and Korra's just like not even human. Like it's her completely primal instinct that's keeping her alive. And it's also the thing that's killing her, and it's like this great dichotomy between like it's her literal like inner struggle that's keeping her alive and also suffocating the life from inside of her. Like it's nuts. It's crazy.
You played some dark shit in this last episode.
Yeah, and I really love that all Jinora kind of guides the Airbenders to save Korra. Like it's that thing that Korra doesn't see like the good she's done, but it ends up being the thing that saves her. But it's not enough to have her fully snap out of it because she's so poisoned. And here's where I have one little like fan complaint. I don't even think it's like a genuine complaint. It's just like, here's what I would have done. When Su Yin ends up metal bending the poison out of Korra, I think it should have been Bolin to metal bend it out of Korra, where that's the moment where he can finally metal bend.
Maybe, but it's funnier that Bolin can't metal bend.
It is, but like I don't know. I think that would have been really touching. Is all.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to. There's enough going on with him where he doesn't need that, but I would have liked it.
That's I did like the prison moment of him failing to metal bend.
Yeah.
Again, Mako sucks trying to give him inspiration. So.
But Mako sucks a little less by the end of this, you know? You know, I mean, he still kills a woman, but...
Yeah.
Like, even as a hero, he can't, like, fully not suck.
I guess he's a real lady killer now.
No.
I feel like someone in the writer's room had to have said that.
Probably. I would love to ask someone about that. Oh, yeah, and then Bolin puts a sock in Zahir's mouth, because he puts a sock in it. And then Opal says, classic Bolin.
Yep. That's the type of show we're dealing with, folks. Maybe it's not worth the discussions, the avenues we go down.
No, I love it.
Especially since neither of us don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, but like I love that.
Wait a minute,
sorry.
did I just say neither of us don't know what we're talking about?
Yeah, but I didn't want to correct you.
You caught me and let me get away with it?
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
I'm no cop.
I'm not either, but I'm definitely a guy who makes fun of his friends when they fuck up.
Yeah, but grammar, what is grammar? All words are made up.
What are words?
At the end of the day, what are words, if not language persisting? Anyway,
words are Gryffindor.
No.
Grammar.
Oh, no. Okay. So we cut ahead in time. 2 weeks later, back in Republic City, and Korra has survived her attack, but she's now wheelchair bound, and Asami has to help her kind of prepare for Jinora's airbending master coronation. Mm-hmm. And it's very sad to see her this way. She's clearly not well. They give her like bags under her eyes.
I'm glad they did it though, because I think it's important to show like, hey, sometimes you can get beat up to a point that you need to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah, no. I think this leads to like some of the best material in the show, and even just like without like, because sometimes that does feel like a cop out. Like, no, this is good later. Like, I think it's good here now because the whole entire season's about change, and you know, she doesn't exactly start the season on the top of the world either, but she has to undergo this, so to speak. You know.
You know who was strangely good at showing that, like, if your body gets injured even slightly, it can follow you the rest of your life?
Shane Black.
No, Stephen King.
Oh.
Stephen King, like, did that in a way that, like, a lot of other people never really did. You know? Mm-hmm. Where it's like fucking Walken in the Dead Zone, like, has a cane for the rest of his life. And the movie's like very explicit about that, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not like he recovers and then he's back to being his healthy self. It's like, oh no, you're going to have these problems forever now, which is what happens.
Yeah, and the last we see of Korra in this season is in the wheelchair, and everyone kind of welcomes her back to Republic City. Even President Raiko um, takes off his exile of her, and he's like, "Welcome back to the city. Thanks for stopping the terrorists." And then he's like, "She doesn't look good." Like everyone just kind of. He's the one that says it bluntly because he's an asshole, but everyone else is like, no, she'll get back, she'll get there.
It's a real downer of an ending.
Oh, like, totally, it so is.
Well, it's also it's a weird, like, it's like almost bittersweet because it's like Jinora goes through her initiation where she gets her head shaved, and it's kind of like this moment where it's like maybe Korra really is done now.
Yeah, that's what I was saving for the end of this. But perfect. Yeah, I love that little nugget of an idea. Like, really quick, I also want to say that Tenzin's kids are very supportive of her, though, and I really like that. And Tenzin has a moment when while the adults are talking, like, what do we do if there's like more Red Lotus members out there that can like do more harm? Like the Earth Kingdom is like in complete disarray, and he just has this moment to himself where he realizes like the Airbending Nation has to be nomadic again in order to kind of keep the peace around. So they do kind of become like Jedi at the end of this, which I really like.
Definitely. Thank God those Jedi never screwed up.
Hey, not a perfect system. No one said that. And yeah, the end when Jinora gets her head shaved and her airbending master tattoos, and it's this beautiful thing of like, oh wow, the Air Nation's back, like balance is coming back to the world in a new, different way. And then everyone's clapping and excited, and then, you know, the last frame of the season is just Korra in the wheelchair and a teardrop falling off her face, you know, like, yeah, maybe, if anything, she was too good at her job because now she feels like she doesn't have to be there anymore. Yeah.
I think the biggest crime her and Aang committed was that they were too good at being the Avatar.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an incredible season of television. That ending kills me every time I watch it, honestly. It's a real tearjerker, and I will fight people over this season of television, quite frankly.
Does anyone really not like this? Like, I feel like any criticism that the show really gets are like the first two seasons. You know?
I think there's pockets of the fandom I've seen that are like, no, none of it's worth it. Because of the first two. And it's like, no, you just don't understand how to talk about things.
Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, I love this so much.
Again, I just think it's weird of being like, yeah, I'm a fan of Avatar. I hate 50% of it.
Yeah, really.
Like, that's you know, I understand, like, it can get complicated with if you're a fan of something because, like, you know, with Star Wars, there's just so much expanded universe shit that you just don't have time for. But I also, like, when I was really deep into Star Wars, it wasn't like I hated most of the expanded universe. I just didn't read most of it.
Yeah.
You know? I feel like if I did read it, I probably wouldn't be a Star Wars fan. But, yeah, it's a little weird when people are like, yeah, I'm a huge fan. I hate most of it. Like, at some point, you go like, well, maybe you aren't a fan.
Yeah.
maybe you should move on to other things. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's okay to like some things, you know? It's like, I like a few Marvel films. That doesn't mean I'm an MCU fan.
Yeah. And I will say, like, we're talking about, like, maybe some of the more iffier politics side of this show.
Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the videos online that criticize the show do not get into those topics.
Yeah. But I just want to say that this did also remind me of kind of a Dark Knight situation where while The Dark Knight I still argue is a great film, the politics are just muddy enough to be like, I don't know about this. And so we have to revisit the next entry to determine like how we really feel about all of it, you know? And we'll see how that goes next time in book 4.
Is this The Dark Knight Rises, I guess is the question.
The Dark Knight Rises is season 4. This is The Dark Knight. Yeah.
Oh God, I hope it's not season 4.
Well, okay. Well, it's. I remember it being less messy than The Dark Knight Rises. But I also was someone who completely was won over by like the operatic nature of Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Dark Knight Rises is fun. I will defend that movie as being a fun movie.
I think it's very good. I would say even great at times.
I gotta say though, there is one scene. I can't remember if I brought this up on the episode we did on it.
You probably did, but fuck it.
I probably did, but I have to bring it up again. Where when Batman comes back to the city and he lights the bat signal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like he burns the bat signal into the bridge or whatever, and saves Commissioner Gordon from drowning. They cut to Bane, right, in wherever the fuck his headquarters is, and he sees the bat symbol and he says to himself, "Impossible." That doesn't make any sense.
Why?
Because Batman has already talked to Talia al Ghul. She would have informed Bane. You don't need a scene of Bane going, "Impossible." You can just do that image.
Yeah.
And instead they have him say to himself, "Impossible."
I don't remember Batman talking to Talia al Ghul before that, but all right.
Well, Bruce Wayne talks to her.
Or Bruce Wayne, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Or at least he talks to someone in her circle of people, but she would have known he was back.
Are you sure? I don't know. I'm going to have to rewatch this now. I don't think that's correct.
I think I'm correct.
All right, well, we'll see.
I will now look up that scene while you're talking.
Okay, well, I'm just going to wrap up the episode now because we're done with book 3. So on that note, Matt...
Instead of talking about this really emotional final, I'm trying to prove Diego wrong.
Yeah. You know it's finale, right?
No, I said final episode.
I know, but it's finale. It's still finale.
But it's the final episode of the season.
All right.
I didn't say finale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, season
episode.
Finale is still a thing.
Yeah, I did not say season finale.
All right.
Fucking come at me, motherfucker.
Matt, where can people find you?
He talks to Catwoman.
Yeah, Catwoman's not going to tell Talia al Ghul
but then they're all informed by like the next scene.
No.
Bane would have known.
All right.
You just don't need Bane saying impossible.
I guess.
That's my point.
You want less Bane? You want less Bane in that movie.
No, he's still in the shot. He just doesn't say impossible.
All right. Where can people find you so we can get out of here?
I think my audio just cut out because I started watching the scene.
God damn it. Where can the people find you?
Hold on, he's talking to
Oh my
Catwoman.
God.
It's snowing. And he gives her the thumb drive that'll help her erase everything. Where's Anne Hathaway been?
She's still acting.
Yeah, but like, what is she? Oh, she was in The Witches.
Oh, we don't talk about that one though.
Yeah, I saw some of that. It was bad.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch that. Sorry.
Oh, she gets him to Lucius Fox, and that's how fucking what's her face knows.
Okay.
I'm still right, motherfucker.
I mean, technically.
Fucking challenge me.
All right.
Bruce Wayne, dressed up as Batman. Can you be called Batman?
Where can people find you?
I don't fucking know.
Oh
I'm on Twitter. You know my Twitter handle. Fucking like 7 people listen to this.
Links down in the description below.
They've all abandoned ship by now. Like they've just all been like this. The new people that would have jumped on board is like, oh, new Legend of Korra podcast. Like, oh, fuck these guys. Like everyone's already gone. Even friends like pretend to listen to this. Everyone's very polite. I'm very grateful. I know you're not listening.
But the one that does, thank you.
Yeah, but fucking Dan Doherty's in the wilderness. So
he came back for the Snyder Cut, I believe.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I hope so too. But you can find me at the Diego Crespo. Check out the Waffle Press on Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and Patreon. And get early access to Book 4 and some other retrospectives that we're doing. I know we want to do at least one before we switch over to the next official retrospective. Maybe 2. We'll see. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We have been professionally unprofessional.